The earthquake did not immediately create the Fukushima Daiichi meltdown. Reactors 1, 2 and 3 shut down automatically when intense ground motion was detected. Control rods entered the cores and stopped the fission chain reaction. But shutdown did not eliminate heat. Radioactive decay still produced enough energy to require continuous cooling, and the grid connections feeding the station were lost during the earthquake. With off-site power gone, emergency diesel generators started as designed and supplied alternating current electricity to cooling systems and instruments. Operators initially had a recognizable emergency: a safely shut down plant running on backup power. The critical dependence was now hidden in the geography of the site. Generators, switchgear and electrical distribution equipment were vulnerable to water levels beyond the plant's design basis. Authorities issued a major tsunami warning within minutes of the earthquake. Initial estimates did not fully describe the waves that would reach the Fukushima coast. Plant workers began emergency actions and evacuations from exposed areas. The warning created time, but not enough to redesign the station's electrical defenses. The arriving water would exceed the seawall and reach equipment needed after every reactor had already shut down. The first significant tsunami wave reached the coast. A larger wave followed. Water rose over coastal defenses and moved through the plant, carrying debris and flooding low-lying buildings. This was not a single cinematic wall striking one reactor. It was a site-wide inundation that attacked common support systems: pumps, electrical rooms, diesel equipment, cable routes, and access paths. A larger tsunami, far above the plant's design assumptions, inundated the site. Most emergency diesel generators stopped. Electrical switchgear and distribution equipment were flooded. Units 1 and 2 lost nearly all alternating current power, creating station blackout conditions. The reactors remained shut down, yet pumps and valves could no longer be relied upon to move decay heat from the cores. Operators lost lighting, alarms, and much instrumentation. Some direct current batteries and surviving equipment provided limited capability, but the control rooms no longer had a complete picture. Water level, pressure, and valve position became difficult or impossible to confirm. Every later decision carried uncertainty because the plant was not only losing cooling, it was losing the ability to measure what cooling remained. The loss of alternating current power was reported as an emergency under Japanese law. Staff tried to establish which systems remained available at each unit. Unit-specific behavior mattered. Designs, valve states, and surviving power sources were not identical, yet the common direction was dangerous. Without reliable heat removal, reactor pressure would rise, water could boil away, and fuel could eventually become uncovered. At Unit 1, operators struggled to determine the status of the isolation condenser, a system that could remove decay heat by condensing steam. Valve behavior depended on electrical power and control logic. Indications were incomplete. Later reviews focused on how long effective cooling continued. In real time, staff faced a machine whose critical internal state could not be directly seen. The operator notified authorities that water injection capability could not be confirmed for Units 1 and 2. This was a decisive threshold. The problem had moved beyond loss of normal power to uncertainty over keeping the fuel covered. Mobile generators and alternative water supplies were requested, but roads, communications, and the devastated region made delivery and connection difficult. Workers searched for batteries, portable generators, cables, and any means to read instruments or operate valves. Fire engines were considered for water injection. These improvised resources were not equivalent to the plant's engineered safety systems. Connections had to be found in darkness around floodwater and debris while aftershocks continued. The rescue problem was now electrical, hydraulic, and logistical at once. Japan declared a nuclear emergency. The declaration did not mean a large radioactive release had already occurred. It recognized that normal safety functions could not be assured. Government, regulator, operator, and local authorities began coordinating under severe information constraints. Multiple damaged nuclear units and a regional natural disaster competed for personnel, power, transport, and communications. Local and national authorities issued evacuation instructions around Fukushima Daiichi, initially for a smaller radius and then expanding it. The protective action occurred while the condition of the cores and containment systems remained uncertain. Moving residents after an earthquake and tsunami was itself hazardous. The timeline shows why evacuation decisions cannot be reduced to one sensor reading. Officials were acting on a worsening loss of defense in depth. Available indications suggested that Unit 1's reactor water level was dropping. The exact condition was difficult to verify because instruments depended on power and could behave unreliably under accident conditions. Decay heat continued to boil water. If the upper fuel became exposed, temperatures would rise rapidly, damaging fuel cladding and producing hydrogen through reactions between hot zirconium and steam. As steam and gases accumulated, pressure in the primary containment rose. Operators considered venting to protect containment integrity. Venting required a path through valves that were not easy to operate without normal power and compressed air. It also carried a radiological consequence. The decision was therefore not simply open or closed. Staff needed authorization, equipment, a workable route, and confidence about where gases would travel. Mobile generators and equipment reached the site, yet flooded switchgear, damaged connections, incompatible access, and cable work prevented a rapid restoration of normal alternating current power. The phrase "bring in a generator" hides the real engineering challenge. Electricity had to reach intact distribution equipment and specific loads. The plant's common electrical pathways had been physically compromised. Measurements indicated Unit 1 containment pressure had risen well above normal. Teams prepared for venting and water injection under worsening conditions. Instrument uncertainty remained significant, but waiting also carried risk. This is the central first-night dilemma. Incomplete data did not pause the physical processes inside the reactor. Heat, boiling, fuel damage, and gas production continued whether gauges were readable or not. Government and operator discussions moved toward venting Unit 1. Crews had to enter areas with rising radiation, identify manual valve actions, and obtain air or power for other valves. Plans changed as site conditions became clearer. Official authorization therefore did not produce an instant vent. The gap between decision and physical execution became part of the accident's escalation. Radiation levels increased at the site, supporting fears that fuel damage and releases were occurring. Workers continued attempts to vent and inject water. Evacuation zones expanded. Nearly 24 hours after the blackout, seawater injection and new power connections were being pursued, but the plant had already spent a full night without reliable engineered cooling. A hydrogen explosion destroyed the upper part of the Unit 1 reactor building. The blast did not resemble a nuclear weapon, and did not mean the reactor vessel itself had detonated. Hydrogen generated during severe fuel heating had migrated and accumulated in the building. The first 24 hours had converted a successful automatic shutdown into a multi-unit nuclear accident, because electricity, cooling, measurement, and access failed together.